Okay, let's start. So back to our main topic, going from idea to product launch. What are the steps that you should take? My name is Sergi. I work with a company called Agile Museum, and in this webinar I want to share with you our approach, how we approach product development, and I can also talk a little bit about how innovation is approached in bigger companies. So the typical big company is not that good at innovation. So if you think about a hierarchical structures of the company, the one that you see on the screen now, we have a lot of hierarchies, which means we have a lot of people with power, and the decision-making process is not so easy to understand in a typical big company, and that's why innovation doesn't happen that much, and we don't see it that often. Like big companies are usually not that innovative. Of course, we have a few exceptions to the rule, as always, but in general, bigger companies have troubles innovating. And innovation, of course, is very important today. So if you don't run ahead of your competition today, the landscape becomes boring and you have the same view all the time, like on the picture you see now. And every company talks about innovation. Everybody wants to innovate. Everybody wants to create new products. So as of today, the big companies have found like three big approaches how they can solve this innovation problem. And I have marked those three approaches as project, Google, and venture approach, and I will explain you in a minute what do I mean by every approach to the innovation. So we can start with the first one. The first one is really easy. Companies call it the project approach, which means we think in our big company that, hey, innovation is very easy. We have to get all of our best people. We have to separate them from the rest of our organization. We can call it something with innovation, beta, lab, or studio in the name, and then we're going to be okay. The main problem with this approach is that typically you take the culture and all the processes from the mother company. So you inherit the decision-making processes that we do have, and essentially everything will be decided by the committees of people where people know how to do it right? And this approach doesn't work so well. The next one that we see a lot of, the next approach we also see a lot. This is something I call the Google approach, where you have a lot of money, like bigger companies, they can afford to buy the competition. So what they do is they think, okay, this is easy, let's buy the best startups of those that we can afford, and then we can include those startups, and that's by buying their innovation, we can have this innovation ourselves. And startups, when they're being bought, they're actually a little bit glad in the beginning, because they think, now we're going to come to a bigger place with larger budgets, and then we can do a lot of fancy stuff. But unfortunately, the result typically is that they drown in the bureaucracy of the mother company. And we also see examples where the mother company kills these small startups that they buy. Sometimes they do it intentionally, like they bought it in order to kill, so that they limit the competition. Sometimes it happens not, sometimes it doesn't happen with their own will, it's just that they buy it, they want to run it, but they don't understand how to run the startup well, so it dies eventually as well. So this is the second approach, and the third one is something I call the venture approach, where we think, this is easy, of course, let's do a hackathon. We can choose the best team among those teams that come. We can give them money, and then we can include them into our portfolio without actually taking the company into our mother company. And the problem with this approach typically is that when we invest, we start investing only in the products that go really well together with the current concept of the mother company. And on most of those attempts, after we acquire a great team and we start they start running with their own thoughts and their own products, later on we still try to bring this startup into our parent company. So eventually we do say in the beginning that we don't want to do this, but if they show some traction, we still want to do it, and they still end up entering the mother company. And all these approaches that I showed you, these 3 approaches to innovation, they are not working that well. They are kind of functioning in a way that the companies are trying to stay young by being closer together to young people. And we can also say that without changing the culture, without changing the how we approach innovation, without changing the decision-making policies internally, we cannot get this new company or new product launch, and we cannot create a great starting position for those ideas. And in order to do this much better, I wanted to talk today about the role that can be formulated, something we call Intrapreneur, in contrast to Intrapreneur, where we need to combine the new management model with the new culture. So only when we have both of those things, we can start having a greater chance of achieving something innovative. And when we talk about this person who will take the position of entrepreneur in the company, we want them to understand the business. Of course, they need to know the area where we work. They need to be able to choose their own goals, so that there's nobody in this company who decides for that person for choosing the goals. They need to work directly with their own teams, so we need somehow to separate the team. This person needs to own the budget, so we allocate money once, and then we tell them, we trust you, you're going to find a way how to spend this money wisely, and you can take any steps that you think are necessary. And we need to give them, of course, the opportunity to decide which way they choose to achieve the results, and also to take their own decisions about the product and the development and in which way the product should be going. And if we will have a role like this, then we can also treat all our projects as hypotheses. In contrast, kind of in a typical organization, they think, hey, as soon as we've got the project, we've got money allocated, and then we run until essentially we launch, right? Until all the money is spent. What we want to do instead is taking a look at every project and the hypothesis. We don't know if this is going to fly or not. That's why we don't want all the money up front. What we suggest is that we can start treating the project, kind of give a little bit of the money to the project first, and then tell this project that, guys, your main goal is to find some potential users that have problems that we can solve, right? And we can spend part of the budget, like say in this, I'll give you kind of an example that we work a little bit on with our clients. Like say $30,000, go and spend it on finding the users with problems. That's all we need to know. We need to validate if we have some users with problems, and already here we do some tests, we spend money, real money, we go out, we talk to potential users, and a lot of projects, they just die, they drop off. So we start, we don't find any user, we don't find problems, we don't get any confirmation, and essentially the project drops, we stop it. And stopping the project should be completely normal. If your project comes through this first step, then you can say, okay, I can give you a little bit more money. And now you will do some more testing. You will have to validate the solution. If you have some users with problems, let's do solution validation. And this is, again, you run a lot of tests. And again, some projects will drop. So this is a typical lean startup approach, right, to how we should approach product development when we don't know we don't know the problem, and we don't know who are the users, and we don't know the solution. So here we take a staged approach to testing all those assumptions, and we also dedicate portions of money to every stage. And only if we get through all these two first ones, then we can say that, okay, now we are ready to build an MVP. We can build something small, and again, giving a little bit more money to this project. And of course, the amounts that you allocate can be different. So if your company have smaller budgets, you can allocate proportionally. But the idea is to not spend all the money on building something that we don't want, but to testing on the way as we go and killing a lot of projects before they use a lot of money. In this way, we can generate more options. So if you can take a look at this picture on the screen now, if you say completely to the left, in the very first, in the very left column, you see the idea pool, where we can have a lot of ideas, we can generate a lot of options. Those are all the projects, those are all the products that we could have in our organization, all the ideas that come to our minds. And then we can choose some of them to move them forward and say, okay, let's do a market validation. And we can do from 6 to 12. In a typical big organization, they can easily work on 6 to 12 projects to validate them. And then they will filter out. Some of those projects will die already. They will not pass the market validation. So they will move into solution validation, or some of them, a few, will move to solution validation. In this case, we say, okay, it's 3 to 6. And again, some of them will die. So you see how the projects are dropping to this blue area down at the bottom of the screen. And the further you come with the idea, the more money you spend on it. So the ideas become more expensive as they move towards the right and here. And if you pass market validation, if you pass this solution validation, then you go to MVP, where we can do 1 or 3 minimum viable products and then testing those. And from that moment in time where we have an MVP ready, then we can talk about that, okay, some MVPs does work. This is something that we do believe this is worth doing. This is the point of commitment. You can say that after we've got an MVP and we've done some tests with the market, we can decide that, okay, this is something we really trust, that this product is worth building. Let's do it. This is ready for development, and let's develop. So we commit ourselves only after certain steps are made, and we are much more sure that this product will fly. Now I want to show you how we do it in our own company. So in Agile Museum, we used I tried to map a path that you see on the screen. So from the top left corner, we move to the right, and then we move as a river from right to left, from right to left, to building the MVP. I wanted to show you all the steps that you take, and I want to give you some comments how we really do it. So in the very left, you see this exclamation point. It's the idea. So as soon as we've got an idea, the first thing we do is we create something we call a first treaty draft. So we say, okay, what is this idea about? Do we see a problem here that we are trying to solve with this product? And who are those people that we are trying to help? So who is having this kind of problem? And this is what in Lean Startup people call this is something we call product market fit, right? So we're trying to figure out, are there any people out there with the problem that we can help? And the very first thing we do is we run out, we go out of the building, out of our office, and we conduct a series of problem interviews. This is time we spend with potential users. If we think that, okay, we're going to create a new product which, I don't know, this is a pill for fat young guys who want to become slimmer. So if this is something, if they think that they have a problem with their obesity or with their size, essentially, that we say that, okay, let's go out and let's talk to the guys like this and figure out what kind of problems they can have. As we talk to the real users, we try to map their current solution, how people are living today, and how do they solve this problem today. Because even if you don't have competition, sometimes you say, oh, our product is so innovative, nobody ever done something like this, we don't have any competition. This is not true. So even if you don't have a competition in kind of another company which is doing another product, those people still survive without a product like this today. So even if it's not a direct competition, there's something out there on the market which allows people to survive, and this is something we want to know what it is, right? We want to map how people survive today without our product. So mapping today's solution, this is the step number 3 that you see on the screen. And after we've done these problem interviews, we talked to a lot of people, we gathered a lot of pains. So now we know that, I mean, if we don't find any pains, we don't go any further because we don't want to create a product which doesn't solve a real pain out in the market. And if we find some pains and we confirm those, we go back to the office and then we start coming up with alternatives. We need to create multiple solutions. That's where you see on the picture I have some round and triangle and different figures which says that, okay, we are trying to come up with multiple alternatives. How can we solve those problems? And as soon as we come up with 2 or 3 of them, the next step we do is, again, we go out and we try to talk to a new set of people, figuring out what kind of solution they would prefer. Because now we generated multiple solutions, and we go and we try talking to, while talking to them, we try to figure out which of all those alternatives that we came up with, which of those people prefer. So again, after doing some tests with real people, we identify 1 or 2 kind of top solutions that we believe, and now the people also confirm that they believe can work. And we try listing all the risks and assumptions that we have made around this solution and around this product. So we list them again to do another set of focused interviews. This is again going out of the building. Now we have a problem, we have a potential solution, everything is in our heads. Sometimes we can have some drawings on napkins, but we don't have anything real kind of so far. We just talked to a lot of users, and we kind of exchanged a lot of ideas internally, and we try to validate those with the real market. So now we go and conduct multiple focus interviews, trying to talk around all those risky areas that we identified. And only after those interviews are done, we have enough input so that we create a first draft or elevator pitch, how we call it, right? This is for the very first time when you will see the most important questions answered about your product, like who is your potential customer, what are we trying to solve, how are we different from our competition, and all those kind of things. So after the elevator pitch is done, we will typically try to I call this step a futurology, right? We will try to do some daydreaming about our product in the future. So it could be different. We use a lot of innovation games to do this step. It could be, if you want something to Google on, you can Google product box, you can Google newspaper articles, or actually you can pick up a book which is called Innovation Games. I can also give you a link after the presentation, which describes how can you take a look into the future, how can you envision your product in the future, so that it becomes much more clear for you. Next step that we do after we have dreamt a little bit about our product, we start analyzing the stakeholders. So we're trying to take a look at who are our stakeholders. So they are not all the stakeholders are the same. Some of them have a lot of interest, some of them have a lot of power, and of course we are interested in those who have both power and interest in our products. And we treat different stakeholders differently. As a separate step of stakeholder analysis, we also create the portrait of an ideal customer. So this is where we also start splitting. If this product is B2B or B2C, we create different kind of ideal customers. So for B2B, we create something we call ideal customer. For B2C, we create a persona. A persona, again, is a typical user of the product. We want to know who we're going to sell to, right? And it's very, for a startup, it's really bad idea to try to launch a product which going to satisfy all the needs of all the people. So like coming up with something really general is not a good start. In the beginning, when you are a startup, it helps you if you can minimize your niche where you go into. So the smaller your niche are, the better it is, because then you know those people, you know where they live, you know where to catch them, you know how to turn your advertising, you know how to word everything. So it does help a lot to limit your niche in the beginning if you're a startup. After these steps, we are ready to crystallize the business model. So this is where you see I have a business GARP drawn to the left in the middle, where now you have potential users, you have their problems, you have the solution, you think about the sales channels, you think about the pricing strategy, how much money you can take, and you also think about the costs, so how much money you should or you will spend to create it. So only here you will start seeing the full business model. Only here you will be ready to formulate a value proposition. And again, in B2B, we create a value proposition because businesses, they buy value. In B2C, we say we create a pleasure proposition because in business to customer, we don't buy value, we typically buy pleasure. So an iPhone, when you buy an iPhone, you pay $1,000 for it, but I mean, it shouldn't. If you only look at the value, probably there are a lot of better phones out on the market. You have Android with much more features. You have 2 SIM cards. You have a terrible memory, blah blah blah. But you still buy an iPhone and you pay more. It's not because it has more features and more value to you, but it gives you more pleasure, right? You want it because it's so I don't know, it's good design, it's a brand. So there are much more other factors that only value plays in. So business to customer regard. So after we formulated the value or pleasure proposition, we start thinking about adoption strategies, how to take this product to market. We create story maps story maps telling us what is the minimum set of is willing to pay us money. So what is this minimum kind? We are trying to chart a minimum viable solution on sticky notes, essentially on the wall. We still don't program. So far, this process that I described to you so far takes a couple of weeks time, and we still don't have any code. We work on paper, we work on sticky notes, we go out and we talk to people. So after we do this mile-wide story map, then we need to find out some metrics. We need to know how many people should we go and talk to, and this is something really worth doing. We try to figure out, or we do some exercises like impact mapping, because we want to make sure that we address the right problems for right people, and that we have metrics to know if we do, I don't know, this step based on what numbers are we willing to discard the idea, or based on what numbers are we willing to proceed with this idea further. As a next step, we will be typically syncing business goals with user goals. You see it on the picture to the bottom right. So typically our users want something else that you want as a business. So to give you an example, when you stand on the check-in counter to take a flight to somewhere, you as a user are interested, of course, of getting a seat assigned and checking in your luggage, while the person at the counter, so the airline representative, they are interested in other stuff, right? They are interested in how big is your bag. If you are not, if you have oversized luggage, they want you to pay for it, right? They're interested to know if you have a visa to the country you're going to, because if you don't, they will have to take you free of charge back. And so the business have different goals than the user, and we need to sync those. We need to think about all of them, and we need to address. I mean, all those goals needs to be addressed, but it needs to be done. I mean, as a business, of course, you don't want to irritate your customers, your users, with something unnecessary. So we want to talk through all those details, or all those goals in details, so that we know that the business achieved their goals while the user achieved theirs, and everybody is happy at that point. So only after this, we are ready to form a release strategy. We do kind of digging a little bit deeper on the story map. We try to come up with more features, and still this is daydreaming, right? We still work on paper. We still don't have any code. We are making a release strategy on the walls. You see it, it's kind of, I made a picture with sticky notes on the wall, and the lines, the black lines showing R1, R2, this is release 1, release 2. So everything above the line is essentially a set of features that's going to be released. And the typical R1, typical release 1, is something we call a minimum viable solution. This is a minimum set of activities that or minimum set of features, if we implement those, somebody is willing to pay us already. So this is how we work at our company, and I think I've spent like 40 minutes now, or 30 minutes. So I want to ask you all if you have any kind of questions to this picture, because I know it's not that easy to understand when you see it for the first time. So shoot with questions, and we're going to be taking those questions one by one. Question here. I can read. Okay, the question is this for product development or for a project as well? And by project, we mean carrying out client works. We do use this approach for projects as well, because, I mean, essentially, all projects are usually products, right? I mean, if you start a project, the end result of a project many times is a product. And The problem with project approach is typically that when we come with the project, everything is already thinking about that this is something worth building, right? We want to take a step back. We want to say that, okay, instead of thinking about our projects as something that, hey, this needs to be done, we want to stop a little bit and think, okay, how can we be sure that instead of spending, I don't know, if your project is, okay, let's say $100,000, right? Instead of spending all $100,000 and then ending up with something that nobody wants, I don't know, we build it, we launch it, but then people are not happy using it, right? We start to think, okay, how can we be more sure that what we create will be attractive, will be used, and everybody will be happy. So you can still use this approach. You can say, okay, let's start a project, but instead of running coding, right, let's test all the assumptions. Let's test who are we thinking about selling it to. Let's talk to them. What do they expect to get from us? Let's validate those ideas, and let's go back and forth between us and those people who we intend the project to be delivered to validate our assumptions and validate our risks. So the bigger problem I see in your question, kind of when you say, okay, client comes to us and asks us for a project, is that we typically in this scenario sit a little bit too far from the customer. So if our client has direct connection to the real user, while we are, as a vendor, don't have this, I would say that probably the main problem for us would be reaching out to the real end user, getting the permission from our client to talk to real user. So yes, we want to use this approach as well for project work, but it's a little bit harder to convince our clients to do so. And thank you for asking. Any more questions? If you have, please type in.